Hello, Steve White, Trekboy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just read the Vanity Fair article to Star Trek Still Matter by Avery B. Vary. I thought this was going to be a big article, important article, a deep article. It was really just a very thinly veiled, very shallow puff piece, just promoting the new shows, and really that's it. It doesn't even answer the question, except I guess to state that they're continuing to produce the Star Trek shows and they have plans for new movies and for Star Trek to continue. So I guess since they're producing product, I guess it matters. So it was very disappointing and a little disturbing. Some of the quotes and double talk from Alex Kurtzman were just baffling. Like he actually says, you cannot create new fans to the exclusion of old fans. You must serve your primary fan base first and you must keep them happy. This is one of the most important steps to building new fans. That makes no sense. That explains why he's not really succeeding. And some of the very insulting comments by Jonathan Frakes about old fans, as if we don't matter, as if that's all Star Trek is. And if Star Trek isn't attracting a younger audience, it might be because it's not inspiring anymore, because it doesn't actually say the future's going to be any better. It's saying basically in the future everything's going to be the same. We're going to have the same problems with government, institutions, the patriarchy, and we're just going to be a group of optimistic rebels going against it all. That's not Star Trek. That's kind of Star Wars. So there's a lot of issues. What was the other? He's actually asked when he's going to stop producing it. And he says, the minute I fall out of love with it is the minute it's not for me anymore. I'm not there yet. To be able to build in this universe, to tell stories that are fundamentally about optimism and a better future at a time when the world seems to be falling apart, it's a really powerful place to live every day. So on one level, he gets the potential of Star Trek, but he doesn't really understand how to actually deliver it. So I do think the guy does like Star Trek. He is inspired by it. He does want to do a good show. He just cannot conceive how it actually works, which is really frustrating. Now, there's a couple of slightly encouraging things which are probably just there because they're criticisms. So rather than just a criticism, they're just saying, oh, we're going to use science more. Like, there's actually a point where he's just conveniently saying to someone in the room, let's just have this more grounded in science. Let's have people solve problems with science. Wow. That's kind of what Star Trek's supposed to be. The fact they have to say, we need to bring this into... so there's issues like that. Now, there's a little bit of interesting behind-the-scenes information stuff. They show a new set, a new science lab from Season 3 of Strange New Worlds, which is a lab that oddly has a 4-foot pool of water underneath a glass floor, which I don't know what that's used for, but hopefully it's not just there for superficial reasons. Hopefully it's something actually relevant to the story. And they do mention that in Section 31 that Garrett, Captain Garrett, is actually going to appear, a younger version of her, so that won't have anything to do with her when we see her in Next Generation. They'll probably take credit for everything she did in that episode somehow, and somehow make it Michael Burnham's achievement. But I don't know, she's not in the Section 31 movie as far as I know, so but I don't know how they're going to use her. But that's supposed to get us excited because there was talk of them using original series character and so forth. And I don't know how I feel about Section 31. I mean, I hate it, but I don't know how I feel about what I've heard so far. There's only one image, one of Michelle Yeoh whispering into the ear of someone who seems partly cybernetic from behind. And that's really all we've seen. There's talk of them doing a sequel if Michelle Yeoh wants to. Kurtzman is talking very optimistically about doing TV films. They talked to the director, and I'm not going to try and pronounce their name. I wrote it out and I'm like, I cannot pronounce that. And he was asking, basically at the end of the day, is this good? Does it introduce good to the world? Does it bring good to the world? Do the characters make the world better? That's one of the things Star Trek did, and I need the characters or the movie to do that. So that's a little bit encouraging. But then he talks about how the characters is like focusing on people that don't fit in And so Rebels, basically like Star Wars again, and basically looking at people who, you'd never see in like a Starfleet crew of characters or teams, and working differently, which again isn't really Star Trek. It's sort of trying to find something outside of or different from Star Trek, because you have a fundamental problem with Star Trek, with a crew of people that are united, work together, and it's like they can't conceive of that, so they have to make it like today, where everyone's fighting and can't get along, but yet they somehow find a way to, and that's not really what Star Trek is. Star Trek is going into the world, into the universe, united, and dealing with diversity from the outside, not dealing with it from the inside like we do today. Again, they don't really get it. They kind of get it on one level, that it's supposed to be good and they're supposed to be optimistic, but they don't really understand. They don't have to put them into a dysfunctional universe to show that. They can have them just interact with other dysfunctional worlds. That was how Star Trek worked. And they do talk about Section 31 basically being antagonistic to Star Trek's values and so forth, but yet they still wanted to do it. And they did talk about the set. Apparently the set for Starfleet Academy's academic atrium is going to basically take up the whole of the 46,000 square foot set studio in Canada. So production-wise, that's kind of interesting, kind of exciting, but at the same time, one of the things they really have done to damage Star Trek is moving it 900 years into the future. Because when they moved Star Trek into the future 100 years by Next Generation, there was no plan to go back. And it did kind of take away from the original series. And they managed to do, a few more movies and finish off the original series. But then they stayed in that time in the 23rd century, in the 24th century with the Next Generation characters. And that worked. But then once they jumped 900 years into the future, they've left that behind. Now, anyone who looks at the future and loves Star Trek because it's a depiction of the future and our future is going to be looking at the 31st century, and they're not going to be able to look back at the 24th century. So it's the 25th century now. They've moved literally at the start of the 25th century. It's not going to work. So what they should have done was just let Discovery go into that future and disappear, and then just the third season of Discovery should have been Strange New Worlds. And even if they just left Discovery in the 31st century, just had a couple of seasons dealing with that time and then came back and made their focus being the 25th century. But no, they're not doing Legacy. They're not doing anything following on from Voyager or Deep Space Nine or Next Generation. They're just doing their own little show in their own little pocket. But yet they still manage to always refer to and go back to original Star Trek Next Generation. So they didn't achieve anything that they were sort of wanting to do by having this fresh start. But yet they've managed to distance themselves so far from actual Star Trek that it can't relate anymore. There's no way to depict the future 900 years, 1100 years or whatever away from us. We can look a couple of hundred years and sort of predict where our sciences are going to go and where our culture is going to go, and it's believable. Once you go 1100 years into the future, it's just fantasy. It's just a mess. And setting Starfleet Academy there when they could have set it, say, in the Section 31 era, which apparently is set during the Lost era, between the B and the D, which was the time of, well, kind of the time of the B. The B was ending, and then mostly the C. It's just so sad to see a Starfleet Academy series, which we've always talked about, and I've always sort of wanted to see, and could be a great opportunity to bring children in, younger teens and that, the YA audience, into Star Trek. But they're going to make it so fantasy and unrelatable that it's just not going to work, unless they just don't adhere to the reality of the universe that they put themselves in and just make it just like the other Star Treks, except, it's 900 years in the future. So we can use that to excuse ourselves out of any scientific magic, but not actually try and depict a realistic... Because how can you depict a realistic version of the future 1100 years from now? There's no way for us to do that realistically without it just being fantasy. It's just so far. And they just went too far, and there's nowhere to go with Star Trek now. We're not 1100 years into the future. So what's the point of having a Next Generation or Voyager or Enterprise or anything from the 23rd or 24th or 25th centuries now when we've got the 31st century? It's just a mess. And they don't address any of that. One thing they do address is they call all Star Trek fans toxic. And how do they do that? By saying, well, Kurtzman said, I think I've learned now how to tell the toxic fans from the real fans. The real fans just want us to hear, what they like and what they want to see. So he thinks anyone for criticism or a problem or a philosophical issue is a toxic fan. But someone who just, likes the show and just says, hey, I want to see this sort of show, or can we have more Romulans, or can we have a musical episode? Those are the real fans to listen to. So Kurtzman doesn't get it. It's clear. He never has, he never will. And Star Trek's never going to really work until he's gone. But unfortunately, he wants to be there because he does love the show. He does want to create a good show. And he's trying to. He just has no concept of what Star Trek is and how it works. So, yeah, rant over.